Where I left off, I had all of the major features of my Scratch program transplanted into my main codebase. But I still need the code that makes my renderer gamma aware, so that's what I'm tackling here. Reviewing the code in my Scratch program that sets up my frame buffer, I suddenly noticed that I've left a pretty big mistake in this code. It turns out I've been creating a multi-sample texture for my frame buffer for some amount of time. Now, it might seem like this sort of mistake isn't that big of a deal since it's isolated in my Scratch program and all the results looked fine, but actually it means that this has been an incorrect assumption in the basis of my experiment. So all the judgment calls that I made where I thought I was using a regular texture and I was actually using a multi-sample texture now need to be redone. I need to go remake those judgments. Off camera, I dig through some Git logs to determine when this mistake first happened. Luckily, the only feature decisions that were misevaluated because of this are the last three low-hanging fruit features that I did not that long ago. So of those, the only one that I think really could suffer is rotation. The other two were rounding the rectangle corners, which I knew looked good, and clipping, which shouldn't be affected at all because I was clamping that to integer boundaries all the time anyways. So the rotation is the only issue. And when I look at that again, I see that rotated shapes are very badly aliased when I don't have my multi-sampling enabled. Now, I could decide to go in a couple of different directions with that. I could remove the anti-aliasing, I could decide to stick with a multi-sample texture even though I was trying to avoid that, or I could keep the anti-aliasing and say that I need to do another round of experiments here. I ended up going with the third route, so I'm keeping the rotation and I'm keeping the single sample regular texture, but I'm not going to do the experiments that I need to do right now to actually work on this. I'll make a to-do for someday to iterate a little bit on how I want to do these rotations. With that plan in place, I move forward with transplanting the gamma awareness features into the codebase. At this point, I have the linear to sRGB resolve up and running in my codebase, which handles the output side of the gamma awareness problem. Now I need to think about the input side. I have two kinds of inputs that go into color calculations. The color data on the vertices that are sent through the shader, and the monochrome data in the texture atlases that are sent through the shader. First, I'll think about the color data that goes with the vertices. I need to decide whether the system will expect linear color data in the vertices or sRGB color data in the vertices. If these colors are sRGB, then the shader can automate the conversion for me, and I can hand code all of my CPU colors in the space that matches UIs and color pickers and everything else. In other words, sRGB is the natural way to hand write code that contains color information and pass it to a GPU and have it automate the conversion. On the other hand, if I ever want to do color math on the CPU, like blending things or HSV conversions in and out or anything like that, then having linear colors on that side would be better too. And so having to convert to linear on the CPU and then back to sRGB, only for the shader to convert it back to linear, feels like an extra step, and maybe it would be smarter to just say that the shaders take linear in the first place so that if the CPU starts using linear colors for any color math on its side, I haven't introduced an entire extra round of converting in and out. I think I prefer to say that I'm going to make as many layers as possible expect linear colors so that I can push the sRGB as far out to the edges of the information chains in my programs as I can. With that decision in mind, I can begin building up the CPU side helpers that I'm going to need to manage sRGB to linear conversions there on the CPU. Finally, I need to figure out what to do with the monochrome data that lives in the texture atlas. Since this data just works like an alpha in the color blends, I might not need to do anything with it. So I'm going to start by just looking at some variations of text with different colors with gamma turned on and off and see how it looks. After looking at that for a bit, I'm pretty sure that I'm right to say that the monochrome textures are fine the way they are. They don't need to be converted. They can just be thought of as alpha, which means I'm done transplanting the sRGB features into my codebase. Next time, I'll start taking a look at API cleanup for my renderer. See you then.